focus of what we're talking about? Why isn't it that how Hamas has set the stage for this situation by building the infrastructure using civilians, by launching this murderous attack against Israel, and now by telling their civilians not to vacate? That should be front and center of anybody in the world looking at the situation here. Not the fact that we are defending ourselves, and not the fact that we are trying to set the situation straight here and to focus on Hamas and its military capabilities. I cannot confirm or deny what happened with that specific bus. I've heard the reports, but I can categorically say that we are not targeting civilians. Categorically. If we were, then the situation would be totally different. We are not.
No, sir, and I am not trying to lecture you. I am trying to ask questions. This is a very difficult situation, and I understand your anger after what happened on Saturday. And please do not take any of these questions as an attempt by me to minimize those murders. That is not what I'm doing. But I have spent my day speaking with Canadian citizens, 16 years old and 19 years old, and they are stuck in Gaza and they cannot get out. And they are terrified that they're not going to live through the weekend. 1,700 civilians, people have been killed inside Gaza since your attack started. And I know your intent is to eradicate Hamas, but there has already been significant collateral damage. A journalist crew was killed in Lebanon today. So this is why I ask these questions, not to lecture and not to minimize what has happened to your country.
Listen, I understand that it's your job to ask questions, but I think the choice of questions really has importance here. And I understand that civilians who are there are afraid and concerned. But look, on the other side, we evacuated all of the Israeli citizens in southern Israel. The places are empty. It's ghost towns. All of the communities around the Gaza border, they're empty. Either killed, butchered, or wounded by Hamas, or taken hostage, or actively evacuated by the IDF. And they're all over Israel now, in hotels or with family or wherever they have found a place to be. Why? Because we don't want civilians in an active combat zone. That's also what we've told the Palestinians. It's an active combat zone. Get out.
So on that, how do they get out? So I know you've told them to evacuate from the north to the south, but your military operations have continued, and people have said it's not safe for them to go out because they don't know when when a bomb is going to fall from the sky. Whether you're targeting them or not, they're afraid. Their family members are being killed and friends have been killed. All of the exit points from Gaza are closed. Now, we heard from Canadian government officials today that there are conversations with Israel, Egypt, Canada about opening up the Rafah bridge to get people out that way, potentially tomorrow between 12 and 5. Is that a viable option? Do you think that is possible? Will the larger military operation inside Gaza be held off long enough for this potential humanitarian corridor to be opened?
You know, that's a question that needs to be asked of Hamas. Hamas governs the Gaza Strip. Hamas controls it, and Hamas bears ultimate responsibility for what happens in Gaza. Hamas initiated this war. They launched the attack on Israel, and Hamas continue to fight against Israel as the fighting on goes. They continue to fire rockets at our civilians. An hour and a half ago, there was a rocket alarm in Tel Aviv, where I am, and millions of Israelis rushed to their shelters in the middle of Shabbat dinner. And you speak about fear and anxiety of the Canadian nationals in Gaza. Well, there's fear and anxiety and death in Israel.
Yes, sir. And we have spoken to Canadian Israeli dual nationals who were there and have fled it. Our reporters have been to the scene of the music festival and reported on the slaughter and the massacre that happened there. I know you're probably not watching all of our coverage. I appreciate that, but I want to assure you that we are telling that side of the story as well. But, you know, our humanity has to go in a lot of directions, and there are innocent people in Gaza. You say this yourself, that they are not your enemies, right?
Yes, exactly. Humanity should go two directions, and our humanity is the fact that we are telling them, go to the stay clear of Gaza City because we're going to operate there. That is an actual expression of our humanity, which is in such sharp contrast to the lack of humanity of our enemies. Not only do they target our civilians, but they use their civilians in order to protect themselves. Hamas uses Gazan civilians in order to protect themselves. And I think it is despicable That should be the front and center of the entire conversation about what's going on here. Yes, there's always two sides to a story, but one side has been attacked, has suffered 1,300 casualties and didn't want this war, and the other side knowingly went into our cities and butchered our civilians. And they continue to fire rockets, and they continue to hold our hostages, men, women, children, and elderly. So there is no moral parity between us and Hamas. Respect for civilians wherever they are. I understand that, but listen, we are at war. We cannot be expected to forfeit our ability to defend ourselves just because a terrorist organization has rigged the entire Gaza Strip to serve its military goals. We have to totally, fundamentally change the situation in Gaza, and we have to rid our southern border of this cancerous threat that Hamas is. We cannot continue to live like this. We cannot allow an organization that is as vicious and as murderous as ISIS was in its heyday to continue to live and see the light of day for even one day after this war is over. We cannot be allowed to do it, and we shouldn't be expected to either.
Right, and look, Lieutenant Colonel, like Hamas is not going to speak to us, right? We're not able to ask them any kind of questions the way you are willing to come on and take these questions from us, which I do appreciate. So I know you say in terms of the southern exit, that is a question for Hamas. The limitations are what they are. So just as a final question to you, should Hamas allow people to get there? Would the IDF facilitate a humanitarian corridor into Egypt to help foreign nationals get out of this area?
I'll do you one better. What Hamas should do is to stop fighting, return our hostages, surrender unconditionally, and Yahya Sinwar and all of his other commanders and political leaders of Hamas should surrender without condition. That would be the best humanitarian step anybody could take in Gaza, and it would save countless lives.
Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus of the Israeli Defense Forces, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you taking our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.